The story kicks off with Melinda in an anger management session. The therapists encourage her to share what happened, and after a brief pause, she asks where to begin. They suggest starting from the start. Melinda then goes on to tell the story of how she met her ex-husband. It was a rainy day in college, and she was rushing back to her dorm when she collided with a guy named Robert, causing her papers to scatter. Irritated, she scolds him, calling him an idiot. Later, Robert shows up at her dorm with her papers, apologizing for the collision. He explains that he tends to get lost in his thoughts while working on projects. Melinda, somewhat indifferent, accepts his apology and mentions her looming paper deadline. As she starts to close the door, Robert confesses to reading her papers, points out errors, and offers to help, sharing his success in the subject from the previous year, something Melinda eventually accepts. On the following day, Robert attempts to assist Melinda, but she insists it's too much work, proposing a break instead. She suggests shifting the conversation to him, inquiring about the papers he had on the first day they met. Robert discloses his project, a self-recharging battery with revolutionary capabilities. He shares his excitement about finding a solution to a long-standing problem and his anticipation of significant success when the battery is introduced. However, the next day reveals Melinda visibly disappointed and sad. Robert catches up with her, concerned about her exams. She discloses her failure, and knowing she studied, he promises to talk to the professor for a resit. Melinda, in a moment of self-deprecation, downplays her intelligence compared to her sisters. Robert apologizes and offers comfort with a hug. Simultaneously, Melinda's sisters deliver somber news. Her mother has passed away. At the funeral, Robert introduces himself to the sisters. Brenda, inquisitive about his job, learns he's currently in school. She questions how he affords it, and he mentions student loans and scholarships, dispelling any notion of being an athlete. Their conversation concludes as Melinda arrives, and they excuse themselves to thank the pastor. Observing this, Robert contemplates leaving, but Melinda rushes to him, questioning his departure. He mentions catching the train, but she insists on driving him home, despite his assurances that it's unnecessary. Arriving at his residence, Melinda is surprised to find he lives in a trailer. Inside, she inquires about his parents. Robert reveals his father is in prison, and his grandmother raised him until she passed when he was 14. He apologizes for Melinda's mother's passing, describing her as a good lady. Melinda, overcome with emotion, confirms her mother's goodness through tears. Robert comforts her with a hug, and their connection deepens into an intimate moment. A few days later, as Melinda gets ready for a date with Robert, her sisters approach. Brenda recommends maintaining some privacy about personal matters, like the inheritance from her mother, undisclosed to him. Melinda, nonchalant, dismisses Brenda's advice and heads out. During the date, Robert enthusiastically shares his aspirations with a company called Prescott Howard Industries, which he anticipates will hire him once his battery gains recognition. He details Prescott's approach, searching for individuals with innovative ideas to transform their lives and make them millionaires. Robert mentions sending weekly letters to the company about his battery, named the Gale-Forced Wind. He points to a building nearby, declaring his future residence on the top floor, and his plan to own a yacht, naming it after her and envisioning her as his wife. After this revelation, they share a kiss. A few days later, Melinda surprises Robert with a car, expressing her disappointment about their lack of connection since the purchase. Determined to mend things, she decides to pay him a visit. Outside his trailer, hesitant about the unannounced visit, she contemplates leaving. However, just as she's about to depart, she overhears him with another woman. Agitated, Melinda reacts impulsively, ramming the car into the trailer multiple times and damaging the vehicle she had bought for him. Robert attempts to calm her down, but suddenly, she faints. After being discharged from the hospital, Robert visits, extending a sincere apology, which Melinda accepts. Soon after, Robert successfully gets his battery working, surprising both him and Melinda. However, things take a turn for the worse when the battery burns up all the wiring in the house, forcing Melinda to get a job and depleting her finances after covering the repair costs. Subsequently, Robert graduates, but despite having multiple job offers, he faces rejection due to a criminal record from his past gang involvement at the age of 15. He confesses to robbing a grocery store and serving time in jail, which disappoints Melinda. In a desperate move, he asks Melinda to mortgage the house her mother left for her to fund the repairs for his battery, a request she reluctantly fulfills after brief contemplation. After nearly 2 decades of shared life, Robert returns to Prescott Industries, hoping to secure a meeting about his battery. To his surprise, Diana, the person he cheated on Melinda with, is now working there. Robert asks for her help in arranging a meeting with Prescott, but she declines, citing company policies. He suggests grabbing coffee to discuss business, seeking her advice, and she agrees. Soon after, Robert receives a call from someone at Prescott Industries, warning him that he is considered a credible threat. They instruct him to stop sending letters or face potential arrest. Frustrated, Robert angrily pushes over his table, explaining to Melinda that Prescott won't see him, expressing disappointment in the years he feels he wasted. Melinda reassures him, saying that it's okay, and all she needs is for him to get a job and consistently help her out. Meanwhile, her sisters arrive, expressing awareness of her mortgaging the house. They assert that Robert needs a job because the battery is deemed a failure.
I was just getting my battery ready.
We all know about that damn battery. That shit ain't never gonna work. It's a joke.
Calvin and Casey step in, offering him a job at their workplace, which he reluctantly accepts. Simultaneously, Diana spends days watching videos of Robert and Melinda introducing his battery, seemingly intrigued by the developments. Subsequently, Brenda discovers Diana's purse in Robert's truck and promptly notifies Melinda. While on a delivery, Robert receives a call from Diana, who expresses intrigue in his videos. She discloses that she shared his work with Prescott, leading to a requested meeting at 11 o'clock. Following the call, Robert promptly retrieves the battery and returns home to prepare. Melinda admonishes him for alleged cheating, resulting in a brief altercation, during which she confiscates the car keys to prevent his departure. Undeterred, Robert proceeds to the scheduled meeting. Prescott extends an offer of $800,000 for his work, to which Robert counterproposes a business partnership, emphasizing the potential billions the battery could generate. Firm in his stance against selling, he declines Prescott's offer and departs. Upon returning home, Robert elucidates the situation to Melinda, clarifying Diana's association with Prescott and their coffee meeting to discuss business. He assures Melinda of his fidelity and recounts the declined offer from Prescott. Despite Robert's explanations, Melinda insists he gather his belongings, signaling the need for a divorce. 3 months later, Melinda faces the loss of her mother's house, compelling her to move in with her sister. Meanwhile, Robert finds accommodation in a homeless shelter. During the divorce settlement, Robert openly professes his love to Melinda, evoking tears from both. Despite offers of the car and clothes, he declines, signing the papers before departing. A couple of days later, Diana extends an offer to accommodate him upon learning about his stay in a homeless shelter. Days later, she presents him with a letter. The letter reveals that he is now the licensed owner of the battery and has entered into a prosperous partnership with Prescott, earning $75 million from the company. Overwhelmed with joy upon reading the letter, he sheds tears of happiness. Days later, he visits Melinda at her workplace, presenting her with a $10 million check and the deed to her mother's house. Expressing regret for the prolonged journey to his dream, he conveys his love and gratitude for her unwavering support throughout the years. After a tender kiss on her forehead, he departs. Bewildered, Melinda shares the news and the check with her sisters, expressing disappointment in the realization that they influenced her divorce from Robert while facing their own relationship challenges. Departing with agitation. Following that, she pays a visit to Robert's residence, expressing delight as she observes him living the exact life he had described to her. Drawing nearer, she confesses her enduring love for him. The situation takes an unpleasant turn when Diana arrives. Extending her hand for an introduction, she leaves Melinda momentarily frozen in shock before departing with a sense of shame. Unhinged, Melinda starts stalking them, resenting that Diana is now living the life she once aspired to. Upon discovering that Robert bought Diana the yacht he had promised her, Melinda attempts to sue them, alleging that Robert orchestrated the divorce to capitalize on future wealth. In court, the judge dismisses the case, noting Robert's generosity with the $10 million and repurchasing the family house, actions he wasn't obligated to take. Furthermore, a restraining order is issued against Melinda, given the threats she had directed at Robert and Diana. Despite the warning, Melinda goes to a bridal shop and damages the dress Diana was considering for her wedding. In court again, the judge sternly warns her that any further harassment will result in jail time.
I am not wrong.
Just like everybody else.
Ignoring the warning, Melinda locates the yacht, brandishing a gun at Robert, questioning his motives and accusing him of using her to advance in life before abandoning her. Despite Robert's heartfelt explanations of love and faithfulness, Melinda shoots him. Upon hearing the shots, Diana rushes to investigate, prompting Melinda to chase her. In a standoff, Melinda demands the engagement ring, believing she doesn't deserve it. Robert intervenes, pushing Melinda into the water and instructing Diana to stop the boat and seek help from the crew. Undeterred, Melinda returns with an axe, subjecting Robert to torture. The situation takes an unexpected turn when Robert's foot inadvertently activates a button, causing the anchor to fall, dragging Melinda into the water, and leading to her demise. The movie concludes with Diana and the crew returning to assist Robert.